Western Australia, a land of brilliant sunshine, endless beaches, and a history stretching back millennia. Yet beneath the sun-baked surface and behind the colonial facade of its historic towns lies a chilling reality. For every success and every moment of peace, there was profound suffering, brutal confinement, and sudden, violent death. The emotional residue of these tragedies has seeped into the very foundations of its oldest structures. Today, we descend into the shadows. We will explore the forgotten corners where the past refuses to stay buried, from desolate convict jails and plague-ridden quarantine camps to monasteries and haunted hotels. Lock your doors, turn off the lights, and prepare to confront the spectral figures that still roam the West. These are the top 10 most haunted places in Western Australia. 10. Old York Hospital, York. Step into the heart of the Avon Valley, to the historic town of York, and stand before an architectural marvel that whispers of the grim realities of a bygone era, the Old York Hospital. Constructed in 1896 to replace a men-only convict facility, this grand building, a testament to Federation arts and crafts design, was a beacon of hope for the burgeoning Goldfields community. Before it became haunted, it was the site of both miraculous recovery and tragic loss, where dedicated staff like the first matron, Mary Ann Nicholas, often improvised life-saving surgeries on kitchen tables, battling widespread typhoid and scurvy brought in from the harsh fields. The history shifted after its closure in 1963. While it transitioned through roles as a civil defense headquarters and a youth hostel, the suffering imprinted on its walls began to manifest. This is where the haunting truly began. The real haunted incidents here are chillingly consistent. Guests, particularly when it operated as a hostel, reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and cold in specific areas. The most famous encounter involves a group of Cub Scouts staying there. One night, they reported seeing the spectral figure of a woman in the halls, believed to be the spirit of a former matron still tending to her post. Other visitors have claimed to hear phantom footsteps, the faint, desperate cries of children, and the unmistakable rattling of medical trolleys late at night, long after the living staff have left. The hospital doesn't just hold history, it holds the restless, agonized spirits of those who drew their last breath within its Victorian walls, forever locked in a loop of suffering and care. 9. New Norcia Monastery, New Norcia. The remote Benedictine monastic town of New Norcia, founded in 1847 by Spanish monks, stands as Australia's only monastic town. Before the shadows fell, it was envisioned as a Christian mission, a self-sufficient community centered around prayer, agriculture, and the education of both Aboriginal and settler children. For decades, it was a place of high culture, art, and deep devotion, dedicated to the peaceful life of the Benedictine rule. However, the peace was shattered, and its history was redefined by decades of systemic abuse. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse brought the dark secrets of New Norcia to light, detailing the horrific experiences of many children. The pain, trauma, and betrayal inflicted within these sacred grounds are what transformed the monastery into one of WA's most profoundly disturbed locations. The haunted incidents here are not of a playful nature, but of a deep, sorrowful oppression. Visitors and workers have reported an overwhelming heaviness and a palpable sense of fear and despair that clings to the air, particularly in the older college buildings. Paranormal investigators often record high EMF readings without a clear source. The most common encounters are the sounds of children weeping when no children are present, and the unexplained shadows flitting through the long, empty corridors of the former schools. Some report feeling as if they are being watched or deliberately pushed, the feeling of restless, wounded spirits of the young, bound forever to the place where their innocence was lost. This is not just a haunting, it's an echo of immense suffering. 8. Kalamunda Hotel, Kalamunda. Nestled in the Darling Ranges, the Kalamunda Hotel has been a pillar of the community since it was rebuilt in 1928, succeeding an original hotel from 1902. Before it became known for its spectral resident, the Kal was a bustling social hub, a vital gathering place for thirsty workers, commercial travelers, and holidaymakers escaping Perth's summer heat. For a short time during the Second World War, it even served as a refuge from the potential threat of invasion. It was a place of lively, human activity, where stories were shared and celebrations held. The hotels turned to the paranormal centers on a single, tragic figure, a young, pregnant teenage girl. Legend claims that she either died tragically in room 24 or committed suicide by jumping off the hotel's back balcony. Her death marked the beginning of the hotel's haunted chapter, transforming a place of merriment into a house of sorrow. Her presence is the source of all real haunted incidents. The most frequent and consistent sightings are of the girl herself, a young, sorrowful apparition seen by staff and guests, particularly on the second floor near the rooms. A former staff member recounted seeing a little girl running through the upstairs hall late at night, only to be told by colleagues, "Oh yeah, that's the ghost, a few people have seen her." Other encounters include unexplained movement of objects in the bar area and the unsettling feeling of a sudden, localized drop in temperature, a classic sign of a spiritual manifestation, all tied back to the spirit of the girl trapped in the hotel's tragic narrative. 7. York Residency Museum, York. The York Residency Museum is a grim testament to the colonial justice system. Built in the 1850s, the structure is the last remaining part of the York Convict Depot and the final superintendent's quarters still standing in Western Australia. Before it became a museum, it was a place of control, confinement, and misery for hundreds of convicts sentenced to servitude and labor between 1850 and 1868. It later served as the resident magistrate's official home and, briefly, part of the Old York Hospital complex next door. Its very foundations hold the stories of harsh punishment and early settlement hardship. The history of haunting is deeply tied to its use as a prison. The discovery of a small shoe buried beneath a doorway, a folk custom to ward off evil spirits, indicates that residents as far back as the 19th century were well aware of the place's oppressive atmosphere. The legacy of injustice, harsh treatment, and the shackling of Aboriginal prisoners in the early days has left a toxic spiritual residue. Paranormal experiences here are intense and often physical. Visitors and volunteers have reported the chilling sensation of being touched, pinched, or pushed by unseen hands. The most dramatic incidents involve the ghost of a male convict seen wandering through the rooms and hallways, and the inexplicable sound of chains dragging across the floor when the museum is entirely empty. The energy is described as intensely angry and oppressed, reflecting the despair of men who lived and suffered under the severe regime of the convict depot, their sentence still not over. 6. The Rose and Crown Hotel, Guildford. The Rose and Crown Hotel, established in 1841, is a true West Australian landmark, officially the state's oldest continuously operating hotel. Before its haunted reputation took hold, it was a vital resting place for travelers. A coach house built on Swan Street by Thomas Jex from local handmade bricks. It was a place of weary relief for those arriving from long journeys, filled with the warmth of log fires and the cheer of the bar, a welcome hub of hospitality in the colonial era. The hotel's transition into a haunted location centers on a few specific characters, whose lives ended within or near its walls. Its main permanent resident is widely known as Charlie the Bullock Driver, a gruff and presumably thirsty spectral figure tied to the hotel's early days as a coaching stop. Other whispers speak of the ghosts of convicts and early publicans who simply never checked out. The real encounters are frequent and often interactive. Charlie is infamous for making his presence known by interfering with the bar. Staff have reported unexplained movement of heavy kegs, liquor bottles flying off shelves, and glasses shattering seemingly on their own. The ghost has a particular dislike for women in the bar area, perhaps a remnant of his rough bullock driving days. In the upper-level accommodations, guests have reported hearing heavy footsteps and disembodied voices calling out in the dead of night. For over 180 years, Charlie and the other restless spirits have made the Rose and Crown a place where the history doesn't just rest on the plaque, it serves itself up right next to your pint. 5. Rottnest Island. Rottnest Island, or Wajumup to the Whadjuk Noongar people, is today a holiday paradise. But before it became a popular tourist destination, its history was defined by pain. From 1838 until 1931, the island was home to a notorious Aboriginal prison and penal settlement. It was here, in the harsh environment and crowded conditions that hundreds of Aboriginal men and boys from across Western Australia were incarcerated, subjected to forced labor, and died from abuse and disease. Over 370 individuals were buried in unmarked graves, particularly in the vicinity of the former graveyard near the quad. This history of profound injustice and mass death is the source of its deep, pervasive haunting. The island's energy is defined by the spirits of those who died far from their country, whose spirits could not rest. 4. Woodman Point Quarantine Station, Coogee. Woodman Point Quarantine Station stands on a desolate headland south of Fremantle, a chilling relic designed to protect Western Australia from disease. Established in 1886 and fully operational from 1901, its purpose before the haunting was grim but necessary: to isolate and contain those arriving by sea who were suspected of carrying deadly infectious diseases like smallpox, typhoid, and the bubonic plague. It was a place of fear, where the sick were separated from their families and kept under harsh military-like conditions, often succumbing to their illness alone. The facility's history after its closure in 1979 cemented its reputation as a place of the dead. Decades of death, fear, and confinement from a highly traumatic environment left a powerful spiritual stain. It became known as the Death House by locals. The sheer volume of real paranormal encounters at Woodman Point is staggering. Investigators consistently record Class A EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, capturing whispers and clear sentences from unseen entities. The most common manifestations are connected to the many sick children who died there. Staff and visitors have reported the sound of a child crying in the empty dining hall, or catching a glimpse of a small pale figure in the windows of the isolation wards. The station's morgue and the isolation block are particularly active, where people report feeling extreme nausea, vertigo, and the chilling sensation of being overcome by sickness, a visceral connection to the trauma imprinted on the very walls. 3. The Guildford Hotel Ruins, Guildford. The Guildford Hotel, a grand three-story establishment built in 1886, was once one of the most magnificent landmarks in the Swan Valley. Before its tragic haunting, it was a thriving meeting place, built by former colonial engineer John Bell, a symbol of Victorian elegance and prosperity. It hosted balls, provided accommodation, and was a bustling social heart of the historic town for over a century. The history shifted dramatically on the morning of September 4, 2008, when a devastating fire ripped through the building, reducing it to a hollow, charred shell, a skeletal ruin of brick and ash. For years, as it stood derelict and exposed to the elements, the intense, violent energy of its destruction and the ghosts of its past converged, creating an extremely active haunted location. The real haunted incidents are a mixture of pre-fire spirits and the destructive energy of the blaze. The most famous is the persistent spirit of a woman in white, often seen looking down from the charred window frames of the upper floor. Many speculate she is the ghost of a bride or a young woman who died tragically on the premises long before the fire. During the years the hotel stood as ruins, security guards and explorers reported hearing disembodied music and the sound of a piano playing from within the burnt-out shell. The atmosphere was often reported as being intensely charged and aggressive, and cameras would frequently malfunction. The tragedy of the fire seemed to have ripped a hole between worlds, leaving the spirits of the hotel's heyday trapped in the skeletal remains of their former life. 2. The Albany Convict Jail, Albany. Situated on the rugged south coast, the Albany Convict Jail, constructed from 1852 to 1872, is one of the oldest surviving colonial structures in Western Australia. Before it became haunted, it operated as a notorious facility for convicts, and later as a public jail. Life within its dark stone walls was brutal, characterized by solitary confinement, harsh labor, and rampant disease. Its most terrifying chapter was its use as a place of public execution, where several men met their end on the gallows. The haunting is a direct result of the immense suffering, injustice, and state-sanctioned death that took place within its cells and exercise yards. The spirits here are often described as angry and trapped, forever reliving their final miserable days. The Albany Jail is a hotbed of real paranormal activity. Investigators frequently report dramatic temperature fluctuations and the sensation of being suffocated or pressed against the walls. The most famous spirit is that of a former prison warden who walks the catwalk, his heavy footsteps heard by guides and visitors when the facility is locked up and empty. Other chilling encounters include the screams and rattling of chains echoing from the solitary confinement cells, and the sighting of a male apparition near the site of the old gallows. Many sensitive visitors report feeling a wave of overwhelming despair and fear upon entering the older cell blocks, a chilling testament to the thousands of agonizing moments that saturated the stone. 1. Fremantle Prison. Fremantle. There is no more intensely haunted site in Western Australia than Fremantle Prison. Built by convict labour in the 1850s, this massive fortress operated as a maximum security prison for almost 140 years until 1991. Before its haunted reputation became infamous, it was the site of executions, riots, isolation, and constant misery. From colonial convicts to 20th century hardened criminals, the prison was a stage for extreme psychological and physical trauma, the last stop for 44 people executed on its gallows, and the site of the infamous 1988 prison riot. The sheer density of violence, pain, and death makes its transition to a haunted site inevitable. The spiritual energy is palpable, corrosive, and hostile. The real haunted incidents at Fremantle Prison are countless. The three most active areas are the new division, the gallows, and the main cell block. At the gallows, security staff have repeatedly heard the sounds of coughing and a trap door slamming, often accompanied by the terrifying feeling of a noose around their neck. The cells of the main block are notorious for being spiritually volatile, with reports of objects being thrown, intense screaming in the night, and the chilling sight of shadow figures darting through the long corridors. One of the most common encounters is with the ghost of a former prison officer, often seen on the upper landing, believed to be still performing his final lonely patrol. Fremantle Prison doesn't just hold history, it holds the living agony of the damned. We have travelled from the desolate island prisons to the terrifying confines of the Great Fremantle Jail, exploring the dark heart of Western Australia's history. The stories are distinct: a grieving teenage girl, an angry bullock driver, the shackled spirits of convicts and children, but the underlying truth is the same. The trauma of the past is never truly silenced. It lingers in the cold spots, the unexplainable sounds, and the chilling sights reported by countless witnesses. Whether they are seeking justice, tending to their lonely duties, or simply trapped by the circumstances of a terrible death, the spirits of Western Australia's past are still very much present, waiting for the night to fall. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey. Until next time, keep the light on.